Hello, this is Storybooks channel. New videos are posted every day. Subscribe and click the bell.
Eugene, hugging his green-eyed and beautiful Lola, said, "We study at different institutes, but I hope we will live together. Are you proposing to me? Surprised girl. Well, almost. I have not yet bought you a ring. But as soon as I reconsider, I'll go to my parents to ask for your hand in marriage." Saying goodbye at home, they could not part. Each kiss was the last, and everything started all over again. Until from the balcony, Mom called her daughter home in a menacing voice. Immediately bounced away from each other and returned to the entranceway. They were both students. She at the Faculty of Foreign Languages. He at Polytechnic in Software Engineering. They met on the bus during rush hour. Eugene was a very independent guy, raised by a single mom. So there was no hope of anyone helping him. They lived more than modestly, but their small one-room apartment was always clean and cozy and smelled of pies. Lucy's mother was a simple, strict woman. During her work at the factory, she developed a commanding voice and a keen sense of justice. She had to appear in courts to defend the rights of female workers. Yes, it was a lot. She loved her son very much. He was born of a beloved man who left her early. But Eugene knew only good things about his father. I don't remember him very well. Lola was a girl self-confident, a little narcissistic, knew perfectly well what men like, but gave no reason for Eugene to be jealous of her. She reported their friendship. Eugene was like her father Michael. Hands grew from the right place. Thoughtful. Before deciding on something, he scratched the back of his head, walked around, thought, and only then made a decision. Lola Nina's mom never worked and was a real homemaker. They had an au pair, so their huge apartment was always shiny. The parents were often abroad. Due to my father's duty. Having met a few times in transportation, the guys decided to get acquainted. Both realized at once that their friendship was bound to grow into something more. At first glance, there was little in common between the guys. Eugene was always simply dressed in jeans, a t-shirt, and sneakers. In winter, his jacket was always open and his cap was tied on. Lola, on the other hand, was always dressed to the hilt. They were raised in families with different incomes and values. But this did not prevent the boys from spending a lot of time together. One day, Lucy met them on the street. "Hello, young people. How are you?" Looking at the girl, the woman asked, "Did I guess?" Lola tried to make her voice sound confident. She really wanted Lucy Petrovna to like her. "Lola, meet my mom, Lucy." "Mom, this is Lola. I told you about her." Yes, I realized that's exactly what you told me about her." The girl's mood immediately soured. She felt that she did not like the future mother-in-law and immediately lowered. "What are you doing?" asked her Eugene when her mother, having said goodbye, left, but also the look in your mom's eyes. "I think she saw the state of my liver, and she obviously didn't like me. The important thing is that I like you, and we're gonna get married. But I wouldn't be so sure after meeting your mom. My mom had a hard life. She buried her husband early and raised me alone." "Yeah, you told me all that." He was nervous. "Lola, you don't owe me an explanation. You don't owe me anything at all, Eugene. Things will be different in our relationship." The guy tried to reassure his friend. "There will be trust and love between us." And he reached out to kiss her. But Lola made him feel guilty about something his mom didn't like. "Eugene, I don't want to." "That's it. That's enough. I'm not walking me home. I'll take a cab." Lucy was waiting for him at home, wanting to talk to him. "How long have you known this girl?" "About 6 months. Why didn't you like her? And you couldn't even hide it. Is it okay if I like her? You're not going to live with her. I'll be there. Are you guys that serious already?" "Yes, we are. We love each other. But I hope you're not getting married tomorrow." "No, not tomorrow, but in a year when I graduate. We've already decided everything." "Well, thank God. At least you were smart enough for that," said the woman. And saying goodnight to her son, she went to rest. Eugene went to the kitchen. That's where the couch where he slept was. It was so convenient for him to cook. He could both have a snack and coffee, if he needed to study longer and prepare for a seminar. But today he was resentful of his mom. Such blatant disrespect he didn't like. Today he recognized a different side of her, and it surprised him. Eugene had always had a part-time job. He couldn't sit on his mom's neck. First of all, it wasn't manly. And in the second place, he needed money to make his land happy, even with modest gifts. Once he heard on the phone, as she advised her friend to buy perfume, from which she is just crazy, "You will not regret the money spent. You will bathe in this fragrance. And then you can never forget it." Eugene really wanted to make such a surprise to his beloved for Christmas. He had never visited such stores before, and at first, he even stopped in front of the entrance. Everything was too pompous. But the desire to surprise Lola made him boldly grab the doorknob and enter the realm of flavor of beautiful balconies, illuminated windows, and a selection of beautiful girls. Seeing the price tag in dollars, he was surprised and guiltily smiled. And that separated Eugene and perfume forever. He went into the store one more time, looked at this luxury of stunning beauty bottles, found his favorite fragrance, Lola, and the price tag hasn't changed since. $500. He wanted to ask if anyone buys such expensive perfume, but he was too shy. He never came to the store again because he earned such money for 2 months, fulfilling the orders of the same poor guys. When there were no orders for the program, he worked as a courier. The money was paid immediately, which was also convenient. That's how he got by. He was not an excellent student, but solid B's adorned his credit book. It was simply impossible to go any lower, or they could take away his scholarship. And you could have had a part-time job. Her father, the head of a large enterprise, could provide for his favorite daughter. But she, looking at Genya, also worked part-time translations, took simple texts, translated, and got her reward. Guys lived an interesting student life and dreamed of what kind of wedding they would have. They met chastely, which is a great rarity nowadays. He was afraid of offending her with his desire to possess her before they were married. Lola appreciated this and considered him a real man. She felt his tenderness, his love, his desire to make her feel good. It was difficult for him to express his love in words, because words did not convey the depth of life's feelings. So he took her hand, looked into those green lakes, and she understood everything. Their hearts sought more and more to merge with each other, rather than living the same dream of marriage. Eugene had been saving for the wedding for a long time now. Some of his hard-earned money he would give to his mom, after which her eyes would get moist, and she would call him the breadwinner. "If your daddy could see you, he'd be very proud of you, son. Please don't make me out to be a superhero, Mom." I'm sure that's what all sons do who take care of their moms. She adored him. The son looked a lot like the Nick of his father's husband, Lucy. The day came when the youth decided to introduce the parents, offering her hand for introduction to the master of the house. She said Lucy, the widow, in an emphatically polite manner. She recognized him at once. He hadn't changed much since Nick had been gone. The man held his gaze on his future relative for a moment and immediately began inviting everyone to the table. Lucy noticed the rich decoration of the apartment, the beautifully set table. Everything felt like a desire to show their unlimited possibilities. Seeing all this, Lucy believed even more that her son would have a hard time with such a chosen one. The son was enchanted by the girl and hovered in the sky, thinking that his Lola was a light in the window. But to be fair, their love was mutual. Lola blossomed from the warmth of Eugene's words, whom she loved. It was moments like this that she remembered how things were with Nick. He was the real deal. She had truly married, and he had stood a stone wall behind his family. It was today that men had replaced the stone with plaster, cardboard, and it had become so unreliable. She woke up when her son put his hand on her palm. "Mom, what are you thinking about?" "I was just thinking to my son about my own womanly things." Nina was talking about France. She loved all French perfumes, cosmetics, wine, dishes. The wine glass she had specially put on the table today. They were of fine French glass, and it was from them that she wanted to drink to the happiness of the young people. The parents were preparing for the wedding, and the young ones were engaged in the most pleasant choice of the bride's outfit, hair, and bridal makeup. Lola was choosing the best salon in town. The price did not interest her, only as long as good masters. Later, when she sees you in the mirror, she will tell them thank you. You are real magicians. They'll smile modestly and say we didn't do anything special. It's our job. And then you're so beautiful. What did nature do for us? Lola thought that in the amount they charged her, they probably skimmed those compliments too. The dress brought to the bride from France itself was certainly dazzling. It didn't even have to be fitted to her figure. It was as if a craftsman had sat in the next room and suited especially for her. Lola, you're amazing. The bridesmaids were admiring the bride's outfit. You are so beautiful, just fantastic. Lola didn't argue. She was pleased to hear such words of admiration from the girls. When all the issues of organizing the wedding were solved, Lucy was going home. Mom, what's your hurry? I'm going, son. Don't worry, I'll get there on my own. Let me call you a cab. Worried son, stop it. I'll walk a bit. And she said goodbye and left. The weather was perfectly disposed for memories. She looked and realized that she was not far from the embankment. Well, that's a nice clean air, the woman thought, and started to walk down to the water. Her memory was returning to the events of 25 years ago. A quarter of a century had passed. My God, how long ago had it been? And was it ever? Yes, it must have been. If she saw Mike, he's good-looking. I guess I'm not so good-looking. He didn't recognize me. God knows if he did or didn't recognize me, it doesn't matter. They met at the Institute of Technology at the Department of Engineering Technology Design. There were only 5 girls at this faculty, the rest 45 guys. Michael and Nick became friends at once. They always argued during breaks, proving something to each other. The guys always invited girls from the Pedagogical Institute for the evening. And this New Year's Eve was no exception. Girls from the Teachers' College came to it. Nick was invited to all the dances. And Michael stopped his attention on the flowers thoughtfully and thin girl, whose brown eyes appeared just huge on her pale face. She stood waiting to be asked to dance. And when Michael asked, she was embarrassed and frightened. That's when things started to turn around for them. Lucy smiled. It was nice to remember her youth, her first love. She felt tired and sat down on the bench. Michael's parents were abroad at this time, working there for 3 years already, and the boy was staying with his grandmother. Jenna was a beautiful girl, was brought up in an orphanage, lived in a communal room, studied at a teacher's college, and to make a living, she scrubbed floors in 2 entrances. The neighbors helped her as much as they could. Everybody loved that kind-hearted girl. Not often, but the boys would go out with the 4 of them. Jenna always clung to Michael and felt protected by him. The guy would stay over at her place at night, and Jenna felt like they had a family. So a year went by. Michael's parents returned, and at that moment she announced her pregnancy. How inappropriate, the young man thought. Maybe it's time to meet the parents. Careful, asked Jenna. Look, let's not burden my parents right away. They just got here, and I don't want to put any problems on them. And you think our child is a problem. She was startled, realizing that his attitude didn't bode well. I thought you'd be happy about something like having a baby. Jenna, can't you hear me? He walked resolutely out of the room and slammed the door forcefully shut. She sensed that something was wrong, but she couldn't guess the reason. Michael would have to tell her the reason, because things were going so well between them. And he couldn't tell her that his parents not only didn't want to meet the girl, but they didn't want her as a relative either. Who did you get involved with? Some homeless orphanage kid. No family, no tribe. I know what your mother was thinking, but in between you should have used your brains. You're not stupid. How can we show her to our acquaintances? Yeah, she's a normal, nice girl. So what if she's in an orphanage? We're all under God. It's not her fault she went there. It's just the way things were. Michael defended his love as best he could. Michael, am I missing something, or are you not telling me something? Is there any other reason besides the fact that you've been together for over a year? Yes, she's expecting a baby. Well, let her wait, I don't mind. But it's my baby, so I'm expecting it too. Is he your grandson or granddaughter? What makes you think it's your baby? These girls are very sneaky. Hang someone else's kid without blinking an eye. That's not the case. Mom, I'm her first man, so I know the baby's mine. Anyway, here's the deal. If you want to get married, but don't ask for money to live in her communal apartment. We won't give you a penny. You're a man. Solve this issue yourself. Or you dump her and marry Deputy Minister's daughter Ninotchka, and you'll be fine. Or Jenna, I think I'll do it myself. For a whole month, he didn't call or come to Jenna. She cried nights and didn't know what to do. One day when she opened the door, Lucy saw her on the doorstep of her apartment. She asked to talk to Michael because she needed to know his decision. But Michael refused to talk, telling his friends to mind their own business. One of the neighbors told Jenna to write to the dean's office of the institute, let them talk to him there in a manly way. But she, afraid that she could ruin his career, refused this option. Deciding to do everything themselves, women came to the lawyer Nancy to write a proper letter and send to the place of study of the scoundrel. She was long retired, knew Jenna well. She felt sorry for her, and when she was asked, she decided to protect the girl. Michael came running the next day. "Bitch, what did you do?" He yelled at the whole apartment. "What do you mean?" Jenna asked, almost whispering in fright. "Why did you write a letter to the institute? Do you think that's how you're going to tie me to you?" "I didn't write anything." "What letter?" Jenna almost cried. "But then someone did it at your request. You wanted to ruin my life. Then you're right. My mother was right when she talked about girls like you." "Michael, but you've already ruined my life. How am I supposed to live? And it doesn't bother you that your child will live in poverty. It's not his fault he has a daddy like that. I don't know who wrote that letter, but now I'm sure it was the right thing to do. Get out of here," her cheeks burning, her eyes throwing lightning bolts. He didn't recognize his submissive twig. The letter had spelled it out in great detail. Michael stood. The guys in the band were crowding outside the door, and when Nick heard that his friend had given up the baby, saying it wasn't his, opened the door and called him a scoundrel in full voice. Meschi, and then had to leave the institute. And only a year later, when everything subsided, entered another. The guys never saw him again. Nick married Lucy after graduating from the institute. The wedding was student fun, but not rich. But they did everything with their own money. Nick was already working at the factory when Michael Mikhailov was appointed chief engineer and then director. They didn't see each other for a while. But when there was an accident in the shop where 2 people were injured, Mikhailov blamed Nick for everything, demanding to put him on trial and that no favors. Although witnesses said that the shop manager was not at work that day. He was at a meeting with the chief engineer, but it was difficult to change Mikhailov's mind. That's the night he became ill. The ambulance took a long time, but he waited for her, smiled, as if apologizing for disturbing, and died. No matter how much the doctors tried to bring him back to life, they failed. So when Eugene told her that he was dating Lola, she didn't want to believe that it was her father who was responsible, albeit indirectly, for her husband's death. She believed that this was Michael's way of getting revenge on Nick for being a scoundrel. Lucy looked at her watch and hurried home. The time Michael was not studying, he was not wasting. The mother and father invited the daughter and her parents to visit. He didn't like the girl very much. If Jenna was a natural blonde, this searing brunette was not as fragile as the one he rejected, and she didn't feel like protecting her at all. It took a couple of months for Michael to get the desire to invite her out. Gradually, the young people got used to each other and met more often. And finally, Michael kissed her for the first time. It seemed to him that his kiss was her first, because he'd never had such ineptitude before. But that was good. The boy cheered himself up. There were more questions. If she had done it skillfully, then what would he be? He and Nana had gotten married when Michael was in his final year at the institute. It was a lavish wedding. Ministers, deputy ministers, journalists, editors of glossy magazines. There was a lot of noise, and of course, Jenna couldn't help but see it. "Here, Sonny, this is your daddy." The bastard's marrying Michael, and she named her baby James. It was the name of her friend at the orphanage who'd always protected her. 3 years after her marriage, Nina admitted she was infertile. They thought long and hard and decided to take a child from the orphanage. "Well, Mom, you didn't want to see your grandson or granddaughter from orphanages. And now you're suggesting I take a baby from an orphanage. A total stranger. I don't even know who he was born to. Maybe from a drunk or a drug addict. Other kids don't go there. Oh, you've ruined my life, Michael said to his mother. The woman pressed her thin lips together and felt guilty. But there was nothing she could do. You're happy now. I have everything but happiness. But you love the money girl. She's a fine hostess and a good-looking woman. Yes, life happens. Trying to calm the mother of her son. They were very lucky. The orphanage had a 3-year-old girl whose parents had been killed in a car accident. Nina's father found out through his connections that they were decent people. The mother taught foreign language at school, and the father worked as an engineer at a factory. The little girl had no other relatives, and the young married couple adopted her. Anna's name was changed to Lola, and the girl began to grow up in the family, needing nothing. The parents immediately agreed not to tell the child anything about her past. They are her parents, that's all. Now they're getting their girl married. Time flew by quickly, and soon Nina Egorovna and Michael will have a new status of grandparents. When Lola and Eugene's wedding was in full swing, the bride and groom dance was announced. It is a beautiful tradition that demonstrates the young one's feelings for each other through the language of dance. Eugene immediately decided that they would dance their first wedding dance, because a wedding without a dance is like Christmas. And it was a waltz. The first chords of the romantic melody sounded. The young wife put her own in his hand, a little took her head back a shot in the back. And different. The young floated down the hall in the rhythm of a waltz. When the music ended, they pressed against each other. And in their heads, everything sounded the first waltz. As husbands and wives, Lucy only regretted one thing, that there was no her Nick, who could not be happy for his happy son. Michael approached her and asked her to dance. She, frankly speaking, was confused, but noticing that Eugene was looking at them, accepted the invitation. I recognized you, but not right away, her former friend said in her ear. But thank God. I was already thinking that I had changed beyond recognition. You've raised a good boy. I'm glad my daughter's gonna have a husband like that. He doesn't want any help. He does everything himself. Good man. Well, you weren't that kind of man when you needed one. I'm not gonna argue. I'm ashamed of what I did, and I hate to bring it up. Does my son know we know each other? No, I haven't told him yet, and I'm still not quite sure if I should. The dance ended, and Michael escorted the lady to her seat. Then, years ago, Jenna had seen on the news and read in the papers that the deputy minister's daughter, Nina, was marrying Michael, her Michael, who had professed his love to her, sworn to be there for her. She recalled her state of mind at that moment. Kicking out a frustrated husband and father, Jenna realized she had misjudged Michael. But why had she trusted him so easily? She thought he loved her. Then I realized that the key word turned out to be, because between the orphanage and the daughter of the deputy minister, he chose all the same money and comfort. The subject is as old as the world. How many books have been written about gullible fools like her, and how many movies have been made? Today, she joins the ranks of the abandoned and the fatherless. Why did she suddenly think things would be different with her? She didn't know. She had always been a cautious girl. Life had taught her not to trust people. And this time, nothing stopped her. What was there to cry about? Now, she should think about the baby and try to be a good mother if she couldn't be a wife. Jenna was having a hard time with Michael's betrayal when she was alone. The incessant and sometimes annoying advice of the neighbors could be heard in her ears. Don't worry, be patient. Everything will be fine. They reassured her. But how and in what way it would be fine? Everything around her was crumbling, and this advice seemed to her like a mockery. She did not see not only an enlightenment, but on the contrary, she was facing even more problems. The pregnancy was easy, and it gave her the opportunity to finish her 3rd year of college. The labor was not difficult. But the child was born loud, gave such night concerts, and by morning fell asleep. So the young mother prayed from her feet and fell asleep next to her son. Just as he was leaving for intermission, she also scrubbed the floors. The old lady's grandmothers at the entryway rocked the stroller with the baby. So the vacation passed, and she had to go back to school. She had 6 months left, and then the internship began. Jenna's life was completely different from that of her friends from the college group. It was hard for them to understand her. Many condemned the girl for deciding to give birth without a husband, condemning herself to poverty and scaring away potential suitors. Many of her classmates had already married and lived happily with their husbands and young children, and Jenna herself was envious in a good way. They had a family, something she'd never had in her life, but she had a son she loved and would do anything she could for him. Only she could do too little. The whole neighborhood helped her, of course. She had a little trouble with her grades, but she stood a half-year sluggish watch. Coming home, she wanted to be alone and homesick. But she gathered her strength, wiped her tears, and approached her son with a smile. "How many people are helping us?" "Yes, son, it's a sin to cry." There was no one to resent. She went to bed with Michael by herself, and no one was pulling her. She decided to have the baby herself. So here's what you get. What did you fight for, as they say? When her earrings were a year old, she decided to call Michael and tell him he was the father. And Jenna wouldn't mind if he had contact with his son. Overcome with pride and shame, she called, but she had long since changed her phone number. Probably knew the ex and could call. She even felt better. She wanted to say it, but she couldn't. But her heart was pounding as she dialed his number. Did she still love him, knowing he'd left her for someone else? No, that was a question she couldn't answer even to herself. Finally, her diploma was complete, and she could work as a home educator for G. Werner. The cart became much calmer, and Jenna decided to advertise for those who wanted to prepare their children in school. 2 people were found. A neighbor took the children and her son for the duration of the job. It was different money than washing shelves in the entrances, but she didn't give up that job either. The children she worked with were wonderful, especially Vanessa. He picked up everything on the fly. "Why didn't you bring your slippers with you? It's chilly and tights. Tell your mom to put them in a bag for you. Okay, you won't forget." "I don't have a mom. Daddy says she's far away in heaven, watching me from there." Vanessa spoke quietly. There was regret and bewilderment in Jenna's gaze. What could have happened to the young woman when she opened the door to Papa Vanessa, then reminded him of the second shoe? "Yes, sorry. I forgot for the next class. I'll be sure to bring them." Vanessa said she doesn't have a mom. Yeah, that's right. My Wendy couldn't beat the disease, which proved to be stronger than her and insidious. For 2 years now, we've been trying to cope without her. Vanessa, you are doing a great job, smiled Jenna. I don't think you will have any problems at school. Thank you so much for your daughter, and I really like to work with you. And when the girl was about to go to the 1st grade, and Jenna said goodbye to her, both of them had tears in their eyes. "Thank you, Jenna. I'll never forget you, and I won't forget you. You're a good girl, you're gonna be fine. Jenna, you come to visit us on September 1. We'll celebrate the Day of Knowledge. But I have a little son." Jenna smiled. "I know, so come together." A week later, they sat together at the table, drank baby champagne, and congratulated the believers on the beginning of the school year. Having gone through all the stages of the relationship, a bouquet on a particular velvet box with a ring, Jenna accepted Kevin's proposal and married him. They made repairs in the communal room and began to rent it out and moved to Kevin's apartment. Her husband was the head of the legal department at the factory and earned a good salary. The apartment was 3-roomed and after an 18-meter apartment. For Jenna, it was a palace. For the first time in years, Kevin went to work quietly, not worrying about Vanessa. The girl didn't call Jenna mommy, and no one rushed her. One day, coming home with Vanessa and James one day, she ran into Michael outside her driveway. "Are you surprised?" he asked, and I calmly answered Jenna. "You live in this house. What did you think I lived in Uncle Tom's cabin?" No, of course not. Sorry, he couldn't take his eyes off the boy. And only when the child hid behind, Jenna asked, "That's my son. That's my son." Trying not to show excitement, Jenna answered. But she wasn't very good at it. "Mine, you hear me? You didn't have one when you traded it for the bond money. And I didn't trade it for humiliation in front of you. To get it back, who's your husband?" Most of the plant's senior staff live in this house. My husband runs the legal department at the plant. She could have sent him away with the question, but she wanted to see how he reacted. "Kevin, yes, he is my husband and the father of these beautiful children." Michael looked at Jenna and noted that the girl he had fallen in love with at first sight had grown up, turned into a grown-up beautiful woman. He was nervous. Jenna saw this and did not understand why. After all, he had lived quietly for 6 years, slept, loved, not tormented and not torments of conscience, not gusts of remorse. And now, seeing his son, became nervous. He was unpleasant to her. She wrinkled her nose at us. It's time. Goodbye. And opening the door of the entranceway, went into the house. All evening, remembering this meeting, Michael was not himself. His boy, his son, seemed happy. Next to his mother, he found some resemblance to himself. His nose. He was a sturdy boy and well-dressed, and his mom's eyes were a huge brown. So Kevin had married Jenna. He had heard good things about him, remembered the animosity with which the huge brown eyes had looked at him, Jenna. It never left him that Jenna hated him, because he did, answered himself Michael deserved. The chair was covered in leather, and neither called out to her husband. "I thought it wasn't coming," said the wife. "I've called you 3 times already." "But I'm not hungry," he replied, and closed himself in his study. He decided to sleep here tonight, so that his wife would not pester him with her questions. He dreamed of that New Year's Eve night when he first saw Jenna and asked her to dance. He took her hand, but a little boy grabbed Jenna by the hem of her dress and yelled, "Mommy, don't go dancing with him. He's bad." Michael opened his eyes and looked at the clock. It was 2 o'clock. He couldn't sleep anymore. He remembered that he had read somewhere about betrayal. It was a good expression. Too bad the author was unknown. Before you brazenly break someone's heart, wipe your feet on someone's feelings. Remember, the checkout line is somewhere up ahead. Everything has to be paid for sometime, and he paid in full. He'll never have any children of his own. In the morning, he had a big cup of black coffee, went to work with his entourage. They didn't see each other for a long time, and when they ran into each other again, she had a bunch of blue toys in her arms. "Can I congratulate you on your son?" "Not necessarily. The last person I'd expect congratulations from. It's you." He looked at her with envy, and only when the front door slammed shut did he go back to his room. It had been 2 years since Jenna and Kevin had had a son, Alex. Vanessa had long called Jenna Mommy, told her all her secrets, and Kevin was happy. James went to 1st grade, and his older sister helped him with his lessons. One day, standing at the kitchen window, Jenna saw Michael in the yard with a little girl about 3 years old. She was wiggling her feet funny. She had been walking for a long time. The child was just tired. Where did this child come from? Did Michael have a girl? How long had they lived for themselves? Thought Jenna, and rapped what? Many years have passed since then. The little girl managed to marry a nice guy, and Michael and Minna soon became grandparents. The Forrester's granddaughter was a major treasure on Jenna. She was an affectionate, gentle child. However, grandchildren were no different. Lola worked at the German company representative office that was in their town. Eugene was a computer technician at the firm he was hired to work for. His duties included software and automation of production processes. The guys got a good salary, and after 2 years, they were able to move out of the rented apartment into their own 2-bedroom apartment, bought with the money they earned. When Lisa was 5 years old, something broke in their family life. That's what it seemed, Eugene. Everything seemed to be the same, but it wasn't. Lola was getting more and more headaches. More and more often she stayed late at work, explaining it by the heavy workload. "You can't just pay money like that. Don't you know Germans?" She justified herself to her husband. There was no reason not to believe her. Family is trust. He chased away the sad thoughts that were always in his head. When Lola came home late from work, he would have given much to bring peace and love back into the house. Eugene looked at their wedding picture with bated breath, at their happy faces. How much had changed since then? All these years he had tried to be a good husband and father. They had a great relationship with their daughter. For some reason, it was him, not her mom. She would talk about her problems. And her daddy solved them very quickly, for some reason to daddy and not to mommy. She told of her first unhappy love for her neighbor Will, who lived across the street. I guess not every woman can be a mother. Lola didn't make it. Tonight he went to bed without his wife again, having called her without any hope of hearing her voice. He lay staring at the ceiling. It was a strange night. It awakened anxiety in him and instilled in him the thought that he would never be able to live a normal life again. Such thoughts would never have occurred to him before. For 7 years he had a beautiful family. What was he to his wife now? He himself could not answer that question, and Lola skillfully avoided frank conversations every time. Eugene, having risen in the morning, did not find his wife at home. After sending his daughter to school, he went to see her at work. A pretty receptionist with a doll face said hello kindly and told him that Lola had quit. How could that be? Yeah, we were surprised ourselves. She came in yesterday morning, wrote a letter of resignation. Doria will tell you more about it. He stood in front of the massive door of the head of the department, Daria. Come in, she said in a nice chicken voice. Hello, I am the husband. Lola, got it. Have a seat. She's fine, she's alive and well. With concern in his voice, asked his wife, what's she going to do? She's alive and well, and in love with Walter Meyer, the translator, with whom she left yesterday morning for Germany. Daria finished. Are you kidding? Asked Eugene. Not at all. Do you joke with such words? I talked to her, but she wouldn't even listen to me. Here's the letter she left you. I asked her to write it, knowing that you would come to me and look me in the eye. And she handed him a sealed envelope. I don't think you should be sad. There's plenty of such good things in our country. You'll meet a good woman. Maybe I will. What am I supposed to tell a 7-year-old kid? I'd be very surprised if you said she was a good, loving mother. I'll go, Eugene said, and said goodbye. He wasn't going to discuss his family problems with a stranger. Getting into the car, he opened the envelope. Eugene, I am going to Germany with Walter. We love each other and want to be together. I think Lisa has enough love, grandparents and yours. We have never been close to her, so she won't notice my absence. And I want to be happy. Goodbye, and I'm sorry. I'll write to my parents or call them. Hello. He got a ruble richer and didn't even notice he pressed the buzzer. Until a security guard knocked on his window and he left the office. Sorry, said Eugene and started the car. He had clearly underestimated his wife. She was much worse than he thought she was. All he cared about now was his daughter. What to say to the child if her mother didn't love her? The child was attached to her. He should have been at work a long time ago. Eugene drove the car, realizing he was worried. His hands resting on the steering wheel were shaking, and he couldn't concentrate on the road. It is not enough to leave the child an orphan, the man thought and stopped the car. He was cutting circles around the car when his phone rang. It was a coworker calling, another good guy, Nick. Eugene, what's wrong? Where are you? There's a meeting today and you have to report on your project. Did you remember? He glanced at his watch, tensed up, and answered briefly. The first thing Lisa asked when Eugene came home from work was where. Lisa. Mom was sent on a business trip to Germany, and she didn't even tell you anything. The girl was surprised. But why didn't she? I know where she is. It was just urgent and even unexpected. Someone got sick, and Mom had to replace that person. For a while. She said 2 months. How long, and we could go to her. The kid wouldn't stop. I guess not. Mom said something about a secret facility. They don't let anyone in there, and they won't let Mom out yet. He wrote whatever came to mind, because the girl was very nervous and wanted to know as much as possible. Somehow convincing the child to wait. He reminded her of Eugene's lessons and did not find himself in Lola's absence. Daughter and father grew even closer. Having done her homework, Lika lay under her father's side and said, You know, I think Mom has abandoned us. Why do you think that? The man inquired. She doesn't call us. She doesn't go online to talk to us. So she doesn't want to see us. But you're wrong. Mom is at work, and in serious work at that. Secret. The child's face became sad. She kissed her father on the cheek and said she went to bed. He must have forgotten his way back to him. Lola's antics had done their work. He lay there wondering how to go on living. What to tell the child? She wasn't a fool to believe in secret work all the time. He couldn't explain. But from the mere name and deed of his wife, inside everything raged with indignation and anger. It is necessary to consult with Mom, thought Eugene, turning his head to the other half of the bed, where Lola once lay, his heart occupied. On the nightstand at her side, he saw a magazine. It was a regular glossy publication that covered all the gossip. At the end of the magazine, he saw the name Lola, the meaning of the name. He found it interesting and started reading. The first lines, the man ran quickly with his eyes. But from the place where the friends dislike Lola, he began to read more carefully. They dislike Lola for her arrogance. That's what Eugene thought. She never had any girlfriends. The ones at the wedding weren't there to see her. They were looking for wealthy men. In addition, she tends to do something first and then think, which inevitably leads to many mistakes. I was thinking the same thing about my wife, Eugene. First marriages are often unsuccessful. The second marriage may be with a foreigner, and you are always the favorite of the whole family. But you're less happy in your adult married life. Eugene couldn't believe his eyes. Is this about everyone? Lola or just his wife? Everything is very close to reality. Surprised Eugene. In the morning, when he opened his eyes, the magazine was still lying open and on the page next to him. After seeing his daughter off to school, he called his mom. "Hi. You can come to me today after work, but not to rush anywhere. I need you for a long time." "Eugene, you're scaring me. What's your shaking?" "Yes, it happened, and I need to consult. Lisa is healthy. She's fine." "Yeah, she's at school." "Well, you're coming, Mom. But you're sure to have dinner. Can I make you something?" "That would be nice," smiled Eugene. Lucy arrived a little early, and when her son opened the door, she already had on the table. "Grandma, how delicious everything is." "I love your roast." "You're welcome, my dear." When Lisa ran away to do homework, the son and his mother moved to the sofa, and he could not start talking for a long time. Lucy helped. "You'll have time to consult with me before Lola is gone." And she won't be anymore. Mother's eyes grew twice as big, but she couldn't ask anything. So Eugene continued. "She ran away to Germany with some Walter. She left me a note saying that she loved this German." Lisa had heard enough about love from her grandparents. What should I do? Mother sat there unable to utter a word. Eugene saw that she was confused. "I thought all day today at work. What do you think about the fact that I will send Lola's greetings to my daughter, some gifts, so that she does not feel abandoned? I will create a page on the internet on behalf of Lola and I will write to her. How else can I help my girl? And on the third day she is already walking around as if in water." Lucy didn't answer right away. She walked around the kitchen, thinking, digesting all the information, and could not understand how a mother could abandon her child for a man, even if he was some Walter. Then she sat down, took her son's hand and said, "Son, you want to protect your daughter, to protect her from unpleasant experiences. That's understandable and worthy of a father, but don't protect her from reality. And if Lola comes back, then what? Mom, in the eyes of her daughter, will be the kindest, most loving and gentle. She hasn't written her a letter. No gifts. Right. So nervous, Eugene. What's your point?" "My point is you should tell the kid the truth. Not right away. You have to let it sink in. Let the 2 months go by that I told her about. And in that time, it'll be hard to prepare her. I'll grant you that. But it won't be a lie, even if it's to save her. Don't make excuses for Lola. The note clearly says she doesn't want Lisa, and that's my opinion. Mom, but in this advice you're not pitying Lisa. You're telling her to tell the truth. No, on the contrary. I'm feeling sorry for my granddaughter, and I want to protect her from being lied to twice. If you're honest with your daughter, she'll appreciate it. And then you and I talked about if Lola comes back, and if she doesn't. You're going to spend your life keeping these pages and giving gifts from your non-existent mom. I don't think that's right." She looked at her son, and she felt sorry for him. He even looked older, she thought. "I'll probably kill you. I'm closer to work from here, too." Eugene stood up, swaying from the information he had heard. Maybe Mom's right, he asked himself, but he couldn't answer that question yet. The 2 months given to him to make a decision were coming to an end. Eugene considered his mother's advice to be the most correct and the most difficult. After waiting for Lisa to come home from school, He finally sank down on the couch and felt tired, running around the apartment as if it could help him make a decision. Eugene was already waiting for her, leaning against the back of the couch, thus giving his back a rest, and watched the door with bated breath. Lisa came in, but he had no time to say anything before she put her palms on his face and said, "Now you will not dissuade me from saying that Mommy has left us." There was nothing left for him to do. How can I add it? I won't, sweetheart. Don't worry, Dad. I love you very much, and we'll get through this together. You are very beautiful, kind, wise, and the girl kissed him on the cheek. He did not hide his worries, gave vent to his emotions, and tears flowed from his eyes. Cry, Daddy. Men are ordinary people and experience the same as we women. And here he couldn't help smiling at his daughter, who was smart beyond her years. He could not believe that so fortunately everything worked out, and he sees his girl with a completely calm and happy. Thank you, my daughter, for getting it right. We'll really get through this. The closest people to each other should help each other. And I have no one closer than you. And I love you. And I love you, Daddy. I'm going to tell you a secret that I wasn't going to share with you, but I'm going to tell you today to cheer you up. I've always loved you more than Mommy. I felt she wasn't very interested in me, but you always came to me and played with me. And I remember that you were the one who read me fairy tales. She cupped his neck with her warm hands. And like a grown woman, she said, "Let's go to lunch. Grandma Lucy brought her special roast yesterday." The man's soul was at peace. There were butterflies flying and birds singing. Lucy went straight to her son's house after work. The door was opened by her granddaughter. The cheerful dragonfly immediately ran to her room. Probably never said anything, thought the mother, and went to the kitchen. But that never had the guts to tell the truth. You don't know how well everything turned out. Lisa knows everything, and don't worry. Oh, really? With amazement in her voice, said Lucy. Come on, tell me. And Eugene told his mother everything in detail. Do you have anything to drink? She asked. Only vodka is wonderful, and there is no need for anything else in this case. They drank a small drink to Lisa, and then talked for a long time about how to go on living. Lola's parents called Eugene and apologized for the act of their wayward daughter. Eugene, but don't deny us the opportunity to see Lisa. They begged tearfully. Yes, of course I won't. Lisa loves you and misses you, so you can have her for the weekend if she wants to. Thank you so much, Eugene. The parents were worried about their daughter's betrayal, and Michael even threw in such a hurtful phrase in his heart. That's what it means when you're not of the same blood. And with a wave of his hand, he went to his office. Nina thought that it was in her garden, a boulder, and secretly wiping her tears. And Eugene Lisa felt as if a whole new life had begun. The man's heart slowly receded from the betrayal of his wife. After 2 years of absence of his wife, he decided to file for divorce. Trusting relationship with his daughter, the father valued very much. He tried to share with her his successes at work, and she told him her secrets, but sometimes turned to her grandmother people to talk to her. Eugene understood that she was a girl, and she might have quite girlish questions for her grandmother. He was only glad that Lisa had become so close to her grandmother. After all, she wouldn't teach her anything bad. He sometimes looked at the sleeping girl and admitted grudgingly that she looked a lot like Lola. But he did not stop loving her. Eugene looked at her, and in his soul there was a strong feeling of guilt in front of the child for not being able to save the family. Once at work, he heard a conversation between 2 girls, and one phrase cut him to the heart. Good men don't leave their wives for lovers. So there was something about him that didn't suit her. They didn't know each other very well. If the husband did not notice the dissatisfaction of his adored wife, and she did not find it necessary to change something in their relationship, apparently, it and led to this outcome of the family. As time went on, Lisa became an adult. After 9th grade, she decided on a profession. Now she wanted to be a doctor. The girl took chemistry and math, biology seriously, although she had excellent grades in all subjects. All 3 years before graduation, she tried to study hard, preparing to enter the medical school. On Christmas Eve, she brought a boy home. Dad, I'd like you to meet Will. Hello, Eugene. He looked at him and saw him as someone who wanted to take away what was most precious to him. Eugene turned to him. Will, is it possible to celebrate Christmas with me? With you, where? Well, first at my house with my parents and then to a club. Very interesting. And I'm not a parent with me, or should I celebrate this family holiday? Yeah, sorry, I wasn't thinking. Why don't we do local time, spend Christmas at your place and then ours? And then we'll go dancing at the club. That way there's no offense to anyone. Will, I remember right, don't I? Well, Will, Jenna and I will decide when and where with whom. Okay, goodbye. Sorry again, and the guy's on his way out. Dad, can't you be a little nicer? No, you can't. I'm seeing him for the first time, and he starts dictating Christmas to me. Who is he? It's okay that your dad wants to be with his daughter the same way. If I were you, I'd explain it to him. You just stood there and listened. You're not a wordless creature. Am I wrong? That's right. You're right, Dad, but I've been with you all year. I don't want to spend this holiday with my friends. Lisa, what's going on? We're fighting, and I've done something to offend you. I almost had a girl in tears. Or didn't you like Will? He can't stand to see these strange guys claiming his girl and dictating how he should spend Christmas. Lucy called to wish her son a Merry Christmas, and I could tell by the sound of her voice that something was wrong. You're all right. You're not in a festive mood. The news that his daughter would be spending Christmas with a young man took him by surprise. Why should he be surprised? She was a mature, beautiful girl. Eugene did not economize on her outfits, so she was always well dressed. There was no question of not allowing her to date a boy at all. More than anything else on Jenna, the father was afraid of losing his daughter's trust, important to both of them. Eugene was afraid of the inevitable, realizing that someday his adored daughter would leave him and create her own family. That's why Lucy Petrovna wouldn't talk about his fears. We're fine. We're getting ready for the holiday. We bought a Christmas tree. We're decorating it. Oh, son, who do you want to deceive? And come to us for Christmas. Eugene went on, as if nothing had happened. I'll come if you invite me. Eugene, you should be thinking about your personal life instead of following your daughter's every move. You're suffocating her with your love. You can't do that either. She's a sensible girl. Weakened a little later, it won't make her love you any less. And if you strangle her, she'll hate you. Yeah, she's going to spend Christmas with some guy. Eugene couldn't take it anymore. Do you know him, where he lives, who his parents are? No, I don't. Well, find out. It's easier to keep out than to act diplomatically, keeping good relations with your daughter. I'll come over and talk to my granddaughter. Grandma's been helpful, as always. Lisa, who's the boy you have with you? How long have you known him? About 2 months. Grandma, maybe a little longer. That's a little short. And you want to go to the club with him tonight? Grandma, he's a nice guy. He goes to our school. He's only a year older than me. His grandparents live in our house. I haven't been to his house, though. So you don't know his parents? No, I don't. Close. And listen to me. I don't think you should go to a club with a boy you don't know very well. At night, you get to know his parents better. If he's a smart guy, he'll understand you. And if he's stupid, why would you want him? You agree with me? Not really, Grandma. I'm not going to marry him, so he has to introduce me to his parents. What if he meets another girl tomorrow? He'll introduce her to his parents too. We're just in the same company, and parents have nothing to do with it. So if you trust him, Grandma wouldn't stop. Grandma, we won't be alone. There's a whole group of us from our class and a few from his. But you'll be spending Christmas with your dad. It's a family holiday. Grandma, it'll be fine. Daddy shouldn't worry so much. I almost had a fight with him for the first time today. Can you believe it? Okay, Lucy agreed with her granddaughter. But the address of his parents or grandparents and you still remain. Deal, nodded Lisa. Will walked home with a droopy head. Why didn't Eugene like his proposal? He had a great idea to sit down with everyone for a little while and then slam. Yeah, well, the first suggestion was stupid, to say the least. To babysit his parents, as if Lisa's father wasn't a parent. He wondered resented why is her father so worried about her. He might change his mind about going with Lisa. There are so many girls around who are willing to go wherever the first guy in their class calls them. But no, he was drawn to her. Lisa. With those thoughts, he came home and locked himself in his room. His parents immediately realized that his plan had failed miserably. "You were right," Kelly said. "Her husband probably sent him away. He was too cocky. How could they say no to a handsome man like that?" And they turned him down. You know, I'm glad they taught him that lesson. He'll think with his head instead of the seat he's sitting on. Come on, go on. I calmed him down. You're the only one who can give him hope, I beg you. But that before a holiday like this, his mood was at zero. His father came into the room. Will was lying face down on the bed. And if it was a girl, you'd think she was crying. The man did not ask about the reason for this mood, but began his story. Then he himself wondered how he did it. You know, there's a boy just like you. He fell in love with a girl once too. He fell in love with her so hard that she spent the rest of her life. But her parents didn't appreciate this young man's impulse and were distrustful of letting their daughter go out with this boy. He saved money for breakfast to treat his girl to ice cream. He would take her to the last row of the movie so he could kiss her. And one day they were walking on the boardwalk and they were late. That's when her mom said to this boy, young man, "How can I trust you with my daughter if you don't respect her at all? I asked you to be home at 10 p.m. and you showed up an hour late. If you can't fulfill such a small thing towards my daughter, you better look for another one. God forbid don't come again at." Will stood up and looked at his father, wanting to ask what happened next. Then this hero had to apologize for being late and promise that it would never happen again. And the boy kept his promise. No matter how much he did not want to go camping with the girls with a sleepover or stay late at the disco. They were always home at 10 p.m. sharp, and the girl's mom, Cindy. "Cindy, so this is my grandmother," smiled Will. "Yes, that's your grandmother and that girl your mom. And that boy is the fool who thought he could have everything at his feet if he wanted it. That's your daddy. That's how it is, Will. So you're not the only one who's been in trouble. I've been in trouble too. You're my son for a reason. It's wonderful that a little girl is growing up in love, that she has someone to worry about her. I'm not going to tell you what to do. You're a smart guy. You'll figure it out for yourself. Thanks, Dad, I got it. Good. Don't be sad. It's good to have smart, loving parents who will help you when you need it." He lay there for a long time thinking about what to do to make Eugene realize that he was a reliable person and loved his daughter. Meeting back at the school, Will asked Lisa what was there after he left. What happened? Grandma came and started asking what was going on. Dad was offended and kept repeating, "Why didn't you take him for your parents?" "Well, it wasn't fun." "Lisa, I'm sorry, I was hasty, but I'll make it up to you." "How? What do you have in mind?" "Don't scare me." "Don't be scared, everything will be fine," her friend assured her. The next day in the evening, Will came to Lisa's house. He was even glad that everyone was there. Lisa's dad and grandma were all looking at him. "You weren't even going to help him with the leading questions. You're not going to help him with leading questions, are you?" The guy took a deep breath and said, "Eugene, I apologize. I was wrong to impose my wishes on you about the New Year's Eve. If you think that Lisa doesn't know me much yet, and it's too early for her to go to the club with me all night, then if you don't mind, I'll stay with Lisa at your place." He fell silent and lowered his head. To support Will, Lisa stood next to him and took his hand. Lucy decided to save the situation. "I don't mind at all. She's happy about your proposal, young man. You very wisely solved the whole thing, Daddy," and she immediately looked sternly at her son. She had just talked to him that it was time to take care of herself, instead of looking at the clock every minute for a tear from the window. "I'm in," said a pleased Eugene. But after Christmas at home, her father still let her go to the club with an entreaty to be home no later than 4:00 a.m. "You hear that, Will? No later? Don't worry, Eugene. We'll be home on time." He waited. His daughter was exactly 4. And when she and Will came to the driveway and kissed goodbye. "When she grows up, my little girl's already kissing. He must be a good guy. How'd you wrap it up on the sly, if you don't mind? Good for you. Lisa has good taste, handsome, and tall. You can see he's been working out. You can see his biceps from under his clothes. He didn't meet her. Daughter did not want to show her that he waits and does not trust them. Fell asleep at once with a peaceful sleep knowing his girl was home. From then on, Will became a frequent visitor to the family. Sometimes the youngsters fought, not without it, but quickly found a common language and believed. Eugene liked the young man. They could in the evening, while Lisa did her homework to play one and another game in chess. And it wasn't always possible for the father to beat Will. He was a good thinker. He graduated from high school a year ahead of Lisa and went straight to medical school. Wanting to continue the dynasty, he wanted to be a surgeon from childhood. A year later, Lisa entered the same school. She dreamed of becoming a pediatrician, curing all her dolls. She took after her grandmother and father, assuring them that there was something wrong with their lungs. Lucy obeyed the little doctor, and this the granddaughter liked very much. Time flew inexorably, and now in house a big party was being prepared. First of all, Lisa is 18, and secondly, she is a student. There were a lot of guests. Lisa invited her school friends. Will, of course, came. The party was in full swing when the apartment doorbell rang. "I'll get it," said Eugene. In front of him stood his ex-wife, who had run away 11 years ago. "Hi. I came to wish you a happy birthday. I can come. Why didn't you come to the other birthdays or even call? Or because, as the song goes, once in a lifetime is 18, so I decided to check in." "Daddy, someone just called Eugene Lisa." "Yeah, here's the daughter. Another belated guest has arrived. I don't know if you'll remember her." The girl stood staring at Lola. "Daughter, don't you recognize me? I'm your mom." And she stretched out her arms, wanting to hug her daughter. Lisa didn't run away, but she didn't rush into her arms either. "I brought you all these presents, fancy clothes. Come on, I'll show you everything. I'm having guests, I'll go to them, then we'll talk. Let's go to the kitchen. Do you want tea?" the flexible one offered. Lucy was not so kind to a former acquaintance, who's not missing. Something went wrong. Our Lola has rushed back once. "You never loved me or wanted your precious son to marry me, which is wrong. So you and he are very different. But my son loved you, so I didn't interfere, and I never turned him against you. And I'm grateful for your granddaughter, for her cleverness and beauty. She's my happiness. Why did you come here?" "To see my daughter," Lola answered sharply. "To wish her a happy birthday. She grew up without a mother." "What kind of mother are you?" "Here's the mother," and she pointed at her son. "I always thought that God created woman to love and take care of children, husband, family. And looking at you, I don't even think that. You always wanted freedom, so you could run away from your child with another man. And then you call yourself a mother. Please don't make me laugh. Is that your truth?" "That's not my truth." You snapped. "I don't doubt that you'll take it all back and make it your husband's fault, who for all 11 years was both dad and mom to his daughter, and knew perfectly well what kind of father Eugene always was. That's why I left so calmly, knowing that my daughter would be fine." The time was approaching 11 p.m., and the guests began to leave little by little. Will was the last to leave, once again congratulating Eugene on her birthday. Lisa came into the kitchen. "Let's talk, Lola." "What do you care about me, Lola? I'm your mom." "And where have you been, Mom?" 11 years. While Dad was around if I was sick, took me to the sea, played, walked, helped me do my homework. You said you brought me clothes, but I don't need anything. Look, my dad always bought me the best, and I never missed you," Lisa said and cried. "Daughter, I don't know what your father told you about me, but you didn't see him. I'll tell you everything as it really was. You're an adult. You understand everything, and you can judge for yourself who's right and who's guilty. I came for you, and you know what opportunities are in Germany. This is not your backwater. You'll see the world, you'll know how beautiful people live. I know you'll love it. We'll sell the apartment, and then we'll buy there. And I have some savings. Why are you looking at me so surprised? You say we'll sell the apartment, and where will Daddy live? Is he going to live on the street? Why would he go to the street with us? Don't you want to ask me?" Eugene spoke up. "If I'm going to Germany, and especially if I'm going with you. I have a very good job now. I'm the head of the department. You're the head of the department. Jesus, you're a loser and a pauper. You can't see beyond your nose. You could be a millionaire in Germany, and here you're a pauper. Let's call it a night. I have to get up early for work tomorrow. Go to your parents' house for the night. and tomorrow we'll continue our conversation. I'm sure that you came not only to congratulate your daughter. Lola said goodbye and slammed the door behind her. I'm going home too, Lucy said. We'll have to think about it. Eugene called his mother a cab, and the apartment became so quiet, calm after the guests' music and guitar songs. Thank you, Daddy, for such a holiday. His daughter hugged him and immediately remembered how, as a little girl, she calmed her father and assured him that they would manage. And they did. Lola went to her parents with a heavy heart. She didn't want to see them, much less talk to them. She still thought of staying the night in her apartment. But her ex-husband was determined. When she returned home after 11 years of absence, she was amazed to see what Lisa had become. A sweet little girl turned into a real beauty. 18 years old, the perfect age to have everything ahead of her. But what surprised Lola was her daughter's lack of arrogance about her appearance. She recalled her facial features and found similarities to herself. I wonder if she realizes what kind of impression she can make on men, if she uses properly what nature has given her, or is she just like her loser father? The woman thought angrily. Or maybe that's a good thing. Being naive, not realizing her beauty would make her even more desirable to men. They like that about these women. It will be necessary to introduce her to the right people in Germany. She's had enough of sitting in this swamp. That's how her mother, if I may say so, reasoned. She stood at the door of the apartment she'd lived in for years. Why don't I see any resemblance between me and my parents? Suddenly, an unusual thought occurred to me. But at that moment, the door was opened by her father. How did you get a fanfare? Don't be sarcastic. I see you're very pleased that Eugene practically kicked me out. You're my parents, and you're supposed to support me. And what are you actually doing? Support you in what? Your inappropriate behavior of abandoning your child? And for whom? She liked the guy. What do you know? Lola didn't stop. It's you who live your whole life not liking each other. You think I didn't see that? I wonder how you could have given birth to me. I guess I turned out to be such a bitch that I wasn't the product of love that burns young men. Only when you're married. Mother was still lying to you, and you sure as hell didn't love her. Shut up, father bellowed. What can you know about love if you can't even love your own daughter? You had a golden husband, a husband that many women more worthy than you would have wanted. And he fell in love with you. What could he find in an empty woman like you? I'm beautiful and smart, and I've been wanted by many, and I've made him happy. Let him say thank you. The father's wild laughter frightened Lola out of his wits. His wife brought him a glass of water and sat him in a chair. Anyway, so the money you demand from us, we don't have. It was never even in your grandfather's lifetime, and he was a deputy minister. My mom and I are retired and we live modestly, but we have enough. Good, said Lola. Why do you need such a huge apartment? It's hard to clean. And I have the right to maintain this apartment too. Sell it and buy yourself a studio. And the money I get will be enough for me. Eugene will sell his and that's it. I'll leave and you'll never see me again. Are you crazy? Where will your daughter live? And I thought, of course, I'll take my daughter with me. So I can get my ex to sell the apartment and Eugene can go to her mother's. That's it. I've made up my mind. No one will be left on the street. Nina, do you hear what that crazy woman is saying? What kind of monster have we raised? I wish she'd stayed in an orphanage. Michael immediately yelled spouse. Yeah, I didn't misspoke. It's better to have no children at all than with such moral freaks. And we're the ones who raised her like that, shivving every order into every hole. Remember? Not a request, an order. Your father flew in at rocket speed to carry it out. And this is the result. I just thank God that she could have given birth to our beautiful granddaughter. And what orphanage are you talking about? And what does that have to do with me? Lola was staring at her father. Yes, because you're not our own daughter. Now you understand. We brought you up, educated you, married you, helped you while you were working, and now we don't owe you anything anymore. Forget about the apartment. It's just Lisa's. There's nothing for you here. Mom turned Lola around. He's gone crazy. What's he talking about? What orphanage? He's telling the truth. We took you from the orphanage as a 3-year-old child. Your parents were in a car accident. Your mom was a foreign language teacher, and your father was an engineer. That's the truth. If your appetite hadn't grown to such obscene proportions, maybe you'd never have found out about your past. You really disappointed us. Maybe we, of course, not the best parents, but such rudeness certainly did not deserve. She helped her husband up and escorted him to the bedroom. Then she went to her daughter and gave her the jewelry box. Is this all I can do for you? Your grandfather gave it to you. Think of it as him helping you. Good night. And Nina went to rest. After talking to her daughter, she had aged 10 years. But she felt better. After they told her the truth, Lola sat absolutely dumbfounded by the news. Now I see why they're in no hurry to help me. She looked at the jewels and realized that she could get very good money for them. Some were handmade in one-of-a-kind pieces. Her mood brightened a little and shrank resentfully. Why did everything have to go? An apartment would be enough for her. What's this place for two old people who are going to die soon anyway? It would have done a good deed. Suddenly, she felt very tired. Walter the woman remembered the first days in Germany. It was happiness, joy, hope for a cloudless future. But not everything had turned out so smoothly. And at the same time, to the point of banality, he turned out to be a gambler. She noticed it not at once, but when her jewelry, given by her parents and grandfather, began to disappear, she understood everything, wanted to leave at once, because she knew such people do not recover, but only sink and pull others with them. But he swore that he would give up everything, that he loved her and would do everything to make her happy. How much money was spent on treatment? But it was enough for a year or two, and he'd relapse again. This time he was unlucky. Voltaire lost to serious people. He fell on the professionals and his cheating, which he always used. They figured out at once, and twice he was taken away. Beaten for several days, she did not even know where he called everyone she knew. No one saw him. It was only a week later that a young man came to her and explained everything. Showed her how much money he owed. Said that as a spouse, she had to pay up. She, of course, had some savings and a lot of money. But Lola wanted to get out of this situation with the least possible loss. She and Walter shared a successful business. Having formalized all the papers for the transfer of the business to her and asked to meet with him, such serious people had a lawyer went to him. After outlining the nature of the case, he made it clear to the poor man that Lola would bail him out, but it was necessary to hand over the business to her and move the papers for him to sign. Walter shrank. He realized that he had played the game and signed everything with shaking hands. Lola was now sole owner of the business, but the debt had to be paid. Walter's waiting for her help. She would have to push Gianni, and she would do it. She woke up by noon, but still felt tired. There was no home, and Lola decided to look for the deeds to the apartment. She had gotten one crazy. The papers were always in her father's office, a folder labeled apartment, but they weren't there now. Did he really hide them from me? Coping, Lola thought. The parents didn't accept anything. They, without agreement, decided to go to the notary and write a will for the apartments for the persons. It would be calmer that way, they said to each other, and after breakfast, they went to the notary's office. And Lola did not give up and looked elsewhere, but all was in vain. Tired, she drank coffee, still lay down, and decided to go to Lydia. The door was not open for a long time, but when her daughter appeared in front of her, she could see headphones in her ears. How long did it take to ring? Asked Lisa, turning to her mother. That you would drink me. I'm not a stranger to you. I'm used to it. I hate to hear you say that. And she went into the room. Nothing's changed in 11 years. Even the furniture is old. Why can't my father update the look of the apartment? In Europe, they throw these things in the trash long ago. Lola was talking and talking, and when she turned around and saw that Lisa was sitting with her eyes closed and listening to music. No parenting, the woman thought, walking over to her daughter, taking out her headphones. I came to talk to you. I want to suggest that you come with me to Germany. There's a different standard of living there, different opportunities. You feel happy in the midst of this civilization. Come, you'll study there. You'll make new friends. How do you see it? Lola started Lisa, but her mother immediately interrupted her. And I asked you not to call me that. What's not to understand? Okay, although it's going to be hard for me to do. You're basically a stranger to me. You weren't there for me during the most difficult moments of my life. And now you show up and you call me, and you're offended that I don't call you mom. My dad was my mom. When I was in 3rd grade, my dad was too shy to bathe me, so I would go to my grandmother's house, or would she come to our house? I missed you, but I got used to it. I love my father very much. He's a deeply decent and kind man. And I'm not going to Germany. This deep, decent, and kind man lied to me, humiliated me, and did everything to make you wean yourself off your mother. How many letters have I written? How many tears have I shed? I miss you. At that time, the door to the apartment opened and Eugene came in, talking daughter and mother loudly, and did not hear how it clicked, and, "Did you write me letters?" Lisa was surprised. Of course I did. And this decent man just didn't give them to you. Eugene shook his fists, but did not interfere with the conversation. The only reason I left was so he wouldn't take away my parental rights. Why would he want to do such a cruel thing to you? My adoring dad. And I think he had another woman then. Dad, but you're overreacting here. If there was a reason, I would have seen that woman. But during the time you were away, there were no other women in the house besides Grandma. You're just a child, Lola said. He was just going to her. You're a big girl, and you realize that a man can't be without a woman for long, unless, of course, he's impotent. And you've never had another man. You haven't cheated on Daddy. Eugene tensed up at any moment, ready to come out of hiding. Oh, really? I loved life. Still, what you're telling? Lisa smiled strangely. Why did you have to go so far away? Grandpa Michael has such a fancy apartment. You could live with them and see me. I could have lived with you and Dad. Why did you leave? And why did your dad want to terminate your parental rights? It's not done at the will of one person. You need a good reason. Lola didn't expect such a question. She didn't expect such a serious conversation from her daughter. The woman thought it would be enough to tell her what a scoundrel her dad was, and that was all. And here the daughter is clearly stumping her with her questions. There were 2 feelings struggling in her life to enter the room. Take out the last letter note and show the daughter so that she would understand everything from the first to the last word of the mother. That's a lie. And on the other hand, it would forever deprive Lisa of Lisa's communication with Lola. After all, if the daughter learns the truth, the ex-wife's attempts to sully her life will fail. He hesitated. You understand, Lisa, I can't tell you everything, or rather, you can't understand everything. The relationship between a man and a woman is a very complicated relationship. Lola, I must disappoint you. I probably believed you. If one day I hadn't found your so-called farewell letter in my father's files. At that moment, the world called Mom collapsed for me. I remember that note by Heart Eugene. I'm going to Germany with Walter. We love each other and want to be together. I think Lisa has enough love, grandparents and yours. We've never been close, so she won't notice my absence. And I want to be happy. Goodbye, I'm sorry. I'll write or call my parents. And you say you've never been with a man. So Dad didn't make you leave, but you ran away from us. I'm sorry, but let's call it what it is with a lover. And I really had enough love, grandparents, and especially Dad. I never thought of you again after reading that note, so don't lie to me. And the girl put her headphones back in to continue listening to her favorite music. Eugene came out of his hiding place and looked at Lola with wide-open eyes. You're even worse than I thought you were. Go away and don't show up here again. No, wait, buddy. We bought this apartment together, and I'm entitled to my share. And if Lisa comes to Germany with me, she and I are entitled to 2 shares in this apartment. But you can buy them back from us, especially since I've advertised my share. You want to live with a roommate, be my guest. Lisa's not going anywhere with you, she told you that clearly. Why do you need a daughter? For 11 years, you've done without her, and she's a bad example. A phone call suddenly interrupted a heated conversation. Yeah, sure, come see it. Yes, it's a 3-bedroom. I'm waiting. What are you thinking? I'm not going to sell the apartment. I have a job here. My daughter's in college. And what's all of a sudden Chelsea's ascension? Screaming Eugene. I'm entitled to this apartment too. Hurry up, or you'll be living with strangers. I've been paying for my share for 11 years. It's been mine for a long time. I wish I'd never asked you to do that. You smirked. You didn't. But I didn't want to be deprived of our home for non-payment. That's why I paid. I consulted a lawyer. You're not entitled to anything here. Take your stuff, go back where you came from. What are you going to regret about this? A battle lost, but not a war. Lola said angrily, and having packed her things, slammed the door of the hated apartment. Unfortunately, she couldn't do anything, although she wanted to punish her ex for doing without her, for not persuading her to stay, and most importantly, for being able to earn her daughter's love and respect. She was angry that her savings would have to be slimmed down, all because no one was willing to help her, although, in her own opinion, she was entitled to everything. After staying with her parents for a few more days, Lola was ready to leave. The goodbye was dry, without hugs or kisses. Opening the door and turning around, she looked at her parents, at her father, who was all gray-haired, and her mother, who was trying to prolong her youth and therefore dyed her hair. She smiled indifferently and could only squeeze out a smile. Thank you and goodbye. Nina cried all the same many years. The little girl called her mommy, and she was happy to see this child growing up. Don't worry, and she did everything right. Michael smiled at Eugene and began to reassure her that the daughter is firmly on her feet and will not be lost. So let's have tea, and hugging his wife by the shoulders, led her to the kitchen. Despite the fact that the crazy love between the spouses was not, at least from the outside. Lola was right about that. They lived their whole life quietly, respectfully trying to support each other in a difficult moment. Looking ahead, it should be said that Lola will never come to her parents again and will see them off for the last time. After Lola left, father and daughters had a long rivalry, and she told her father that for a moment she felt disappointed. When she heard Lola's blatant lies, and I was glad to know the truth. How did you find that letter? I hid it so far away. I don't even know why I didn't tear it up and throw it away. It's not too late to do it tomorrow, lest, God forbid, your grandchildren read it. Daughter, your way of talking, of reasoning, makes you look older, and that impression is even stronger. When I look at your new hairstyle, but either way, you're smart and beautiful. Come on, grandmas, let's not talk about Lola coming. She'll be upset and pity me, patting me on the head, saying I'm a poor kid. I'm not poor at all. I'm the happiest, even though she looked just like Lola. But looking at Eugenia's daughter, he was amazed at the thought that this girl had everything that her mother did not have. He never ceased to be amazed at her kindness, her decency, at how much she knew. Everything ostentatious and knave was absent in her. His daughter was his pride. Meanwhile, Lola landed at Frankfurt Airport. When she arrived home, she immediately called Walter's mother and explained everything that had happened to him to Frau Martha. I am leaving to live with your son. I don't want to. I hope you will understand and not judge me. I did a lot to cure him, but I couldn't. I'm calling you so that when he gets here, he won't start drinking and gambling again, making debts. Now you'll have to pay for him. I'll leave him a letter explaining everything. I'm waiting for you. Then the caller and her lawyer asked him to go with her and be a witness to the transfer of the money. She decided to keep the jewels for the time being, and she did not want to hurry with her savings. Toward evening, Frau Martha arrived. She was a tall, dry, typical German woman. Blue ears from age. Eyes gave her appearance, a little intimidating. The money for Walter had been handed over. He was promised to be released. Lola had everything ready for departure as well. Nothing else held her in this city, and with a nod of farewell to Frau March, she got into a cab and never returned to this city again. A year later, Lola would marry a lawyer 10 years older than herself. Their offices were next to each other, and God himself told them to pay attention to each other. They both escaped loneliness by complimenting each other. The active Lola, always in a hurry, with one idea overtaking another. And Henry, calm, judicious, never making hasty decisions. Life had settled down. She calmed down and even recovered a little, which pleased her husband very much. But the woman only berated herself for having put up with this idiot for so long, who still could not pull herself together and quit playing. Perhaps that was the only time she thought about him. Lola remembered her daughter 2 years later on her 20th birthday. She called to congratulate her. There was no conversation because no one was expecting her call. No one wanted her. The woman didn't get upset. She just chalked it up to the fact that she had some distant relatives in Russia. Time ran inexorably forward, and opening her eyes in the morning, Lisa realized that this was the last day of her life as a bride. Today she was marrying Will, and they would live like a fairy tale, a long and happy life, and die on the same day. The bride was finishing her studies at the Institut Grum Inter Natura. They both didn't want to wait any longer. Studying at the same institute, they saw each other very rarely. Sometimes it took weeks to get together. Will studied in one building, Lisa in another, so they could only return phone calls. During this time, both realized that jealous. Lisa was on the course and was always in the thick of things, so she was never alone, and Will didn't like that. But today was their wedding day, and tomorrow they would already be husband and wife. Lisa smiled at the thought, not imagining herself in this new and difficult role, but she was still warm about it, especially since she loved Will so much. Strangely enough, her list of admirers was quite short. She didn't need anyone but this strong and reliable man. Eugene was worried, too. He was giving his only daughter in marriage and preparing for his new status as father-in-law. He didn't know, of course, what kind of man he was and how he should behave with his son-in-law. But after thinking about it, he decided not to change anything about Will. He liked the guy, and Eugene was giving him his daughter. Relatively at peace. There weren't very many guests. Girlfriends, friends, guys, relatives on one side and the other. A month ago, the parents had met and liked each other. And that's important too. After all, we have to meet at family celebrations, and it's nicer when these people are nice. There was still a whole hour left till the celebration, and the guests had already started to gather. Michael and Nina stood aside and saw all the guests invited to the party. There was a big crowd in the hall, headed by Jenna No, already Jenna, and Kevin. All of it. He recognized his son immediately. 2 young women were walking beside him. Both were laughing, and he hugged them both. He apologized to his spouse and stopped abruptly beside Jenna. She startled, floated away from him, and her spouse held her by the elbow. And Michael stared into those familiar huge brown eyes. "Jenna, I'm sorry I startled you. Can I talk to you for a couple minutes?" "What's wrong?" Jenna asked unhappily. "That's my son. I told you years ago, but Michael didn't let her finish." Yes, I remember it's only your son." "Home. James Nikitic Lipko." Every word the woman coined so that Michael realized that he had a different father. "You don't give me even a small hope of ever telling my son that I'm his father. Just as you took that hope of happiness away from me years ago, by abandoning me to my fate." "Yes, I did a terrible thing," Michael agreed. "But fate has already punished me. We have no children. Nina never had a baby. She didn't. And the girl you were walking with in the yard, that's Lola, our adopted daughter. We took her from the orphanage. Good for you. At least we made one child happy," smiled Jenna. "Tell me about your son. Who's with him?" "He's hugging 2 women at once. On the right is his wife Emily, and on the left is his sister Vanessa. And across from James is my son Alex with Eugene and Kelly. And they are surrounded by my grandchildren." "What did James become, and where does he live?" "James is a computer genius. He owns his own company. His oldest son is a lawyer, married with no kids yet. The youngest is finishing school, wants to work for her father. It's a big family for James, and he doesn't know Kevin's not his own." Michael suddenly inquired. Jenna looked at him with regret. "You still don't get it. Kevin is the closest thing he has to family, and he raised him and made a man out of him. James, a real man, responsible, provides for his family. He's the real head of the family. But what good are you if you're his biological father who forced his mother to have an abortion? How can real fathers do that? So I don't entertain the notion that you're a father. Remember, you're nothing." She spoke harshly, not sparing this already gray-haired man. "I get it. What side of the wedding are you invited to?" "On the groom's side," she smiled in color. "As it is to be understood, so it is to be understood. Will, the son of my younger Alex. What are you doing here? I don't get it. So Lisa is my granddaughter. Lola's daughter. He looked at Jenna and he was frightened. She was standing there pale and open-mouthed, gasping for air. Oh my God, so this is how we're all related. It's a shame. But I couldn't have done anything anyway. Volochkova is very fond of Lisa. I like her too. Yeah, where's your daughter? Michael immediately became sad. And although he had been preparing for this question, it still took him by surprise. She couldn't make it, working abroad. You're lying, Jenna replied sharply. But I don't care about that. It's your family. Goodbye, and stay away from mine. Michael looked for his wife with his eyes, but did not find her. Many people were feeding him, and he sat down in a chair that stood in the hall. He closed his eyes to visualize his son once more. Michael, why are you crying? Asked the spouse who came up. Yes, we are crying. Not every day granddaughters get married. Lying again, said the man to himself, again covering his eyes. We ask all the guests to go to the hall. Hear the loud voice of the wedding organizer. The young people sat at the head of the table and were quite nervous. For them, this day was fateful. It was their first and main ball of love, which would be remembered forever and would open a new family life for them. Will kept his eyes on Lisa. Are you embarrassing me? Don't stare so hard. Who am I looking at? Are you my wife now? And how does that outfit look on you? The toastmaster joked a lot, organized games and dances, led the chanting. Bitter, in general, he practiced to the fullest. In the midst of the celebration, the door to the hall slowly opened and a woman entered. Finding the one who invited her, with a quick step, approached. She sat down next to him. Eugene was watching. He didn't know the woman. He'd never seen her at his mother's. Who is she and why is she here with you? When he met his mother's gaze, he nodded and asked who it was. But Lucy gave him a thumbs up, from which Eugene realized that an explanation lay ahead. The dancing part of the evening was opened by the young and beautiful waltz. The grandmother, looking at her granddaughter, cried and furtively crossed her lips whispering something, and Eugene kept looking at the strange woman. She was about 35 years old, a searing brunette of short stature. Eugene liked her. He had long forgotten that feeling of heartbreak. How simple it had been when he was young. But now it was a stupor. He was struggling with two feelings. What the fuck? Does she need you? He's got grandkids. I'll be right back. And he made a sharp turn, went to his seat. But the inner voice was working, even on a holiday like this. Where are you going? You are now whom do you want to convince yourself or this woman that you have already done your time? How are you going to live? My daughter's married. It's time. She has her own family, in which you will have a place, but a small one. Eugene stopped, turned abruptly, and before he could change his mind, took a quick step towards the woman. She was standing next to her mother and chatting sweetly. May I ask you to dance? She looked at Ludmila and, receiving approval, went to dance. Let's get acquainted. Completely daring, said Eugene. I'm Kathy, and I'm Eugen. I know you in absentia. Your mother has told me a lot about you, so I know more about you than you know about me. That's not fair. We need to correct that imbalance, smiled the man. I agree. Kathy smiled, baring her white teeth. Up close, she was even prettier, beautiful eyes with fluffy lashes, sensual lips, and hair that didn't match her shoulders in large waves that you wanted to run your fingers through. Oh, what bold thoughts do you have? The inner voice woke up. Eugen flinched, but the voice praised him. Well done. So you still need a man and want women, which is only natural. And she, as you can see, wants you. Eugene looked into Kathy's eyes and suggested to switch to you. She answered with pleasure. The music ended and immediately both were confused. They both had the same question. What's next? Let's drink to my favorite daughter and then to acquaintance. Eugene suggested. That's a great idea. Lucy was happy with this lovely woman. She met her on the promenade, walking alone. The woman's fate had not been easy. Perrin's authoritarian people divorced her husband, deciding that he was not suitable for her and kept to the last, saying that she owed them everything. Kathy did not argue and fulfilled her filial duty. When her parents were gone, she considered that it would be soon. Lucy brought her back to life and invited her to the wedding to introduce her to her son, who understood his mother's message correctly. God willing, they would make it work. Looking in the direction of her son, she saw a man-woman, satisfied with each other, heard the first beat and music, or invited his father to dance. A little where else a man in an impeccable gray suit and a daughter in a gorgeous white dress twirled around the hall in the rhythm of the tango. Did not leave the mother of the distance while compared to the tall and athletic son, she seemed small and fragile. And at the end of the dance, tearing mom off the floor, son spun her. Anyone with son, Michael kept an eye on him. Soon Jenna saw Michael and his wife walk up. But before he left, he looked in her direction and mentally said goodbye. As she looked after him, she let go of all resentment and forgave him. Amazing. And it immediately became easier. She was grateful to him that he did not ruin her life, did not sue for the opportunity to see her son. Let God decide the rest. She's not without sin. Eugene called a cab, drove his mother home first, then Kathy. But before he left, he made an appointment. He felt at ease with this woman. A year later, Eugene would propose to her and they would marry. 2 years later, he would become a second-time dad and grandfather. What wonders life has to offer. Lisa and Will soon move closer to James, who will help with both Will's job and the apartment. Life is beautiful, and it continues in our children and grandchildren. To see them grow up, one must decide before they are born that a child must be loved and accepted for who they are. Not to break it, not to make it the center of the universe, but to respect it. Then, in our old age, we will have children and grandchildren, and we will have a peaceful and happy old age, because parents feel good when their children feel good.